Well, good afternoon, YouTube. This is Chuck. And as you can tell, I'm coming to you from the van. It's a bright, sunshiny day, but it's kind of cold out. It's right around 40 and the wind's blowing. So it's a little chilly to play outside. So today is a good day to sit in here and talk to y'all a little bit about a friend of mine who I just found out passed away yesterday. And his name was Chuck as well. And he and his wife both worked in higher education and in on the West Coast for many, many, many years. And when they retired, they moved to our area here, and we got to know them through another couple. And the three couples, uh, we traveled together with travel trailers for a while, and there's a couple little stories about that are kind of comical. And when we first started traveling, we had an RV, a big fifth wheel, years ago. And those of you that have watched my videos before heard me talking about it. And there's a picture of it over on my community page if you scan back a bit. But anyway, we were without an RV for a few years because I was working. And then my wife and I and another couple, we were going to go up to the Grand Canyon. And we checked into a hotel room up there. We had trouble getting a hotel room because they were, even though it was late in the season, they were everything was pretty booked. And we ended up spending some ungodly amount, $150 a night, I believe it was, for a hotel room. And the place was a dump. It was terrible. It was filthy. I even lifted the mattress up, make sure it didn't have bed bugs, because I mean, the place was bad. And for that kind of money, it should have been a lot better than that. And while we were there, we were talking about that, and we said, we ought to get a trailer again because we had one before. And so we started looking around, and I ended up talking my wife into buying one of these little 20-foot, I call them Swiss Army knife trailers because they supposedly do everything. And we tried taking that on a trip, and quite honestly, it just did not work out. It had a Murphy bed. And the Murphy bed, the mattress was horrible. It wasn't long enough for me. I'm a tall guy. And you couldn't change it out because of nature how it was built. It had all the stuff in it that a trailer's supposed to have, but it was in such a small package that there was no counter space, there was no storage, no place to put your pots and pans. The bathroom was so small that I literally could not use the toilet and close the door at the same time. I had to leave the door open, and that's not good. Excuse me, I got something in my eye. But anyway, so this one couple that we knew, they bought a travel trailer, and we looked at it, and my wife just totally fell in love with it. And it was this, and so we ended up deciding that we were going to go ahead and trade in this little Swiss Army knife trailer and get one like theirs. And we looked around, we found one. They were kind of hard to come by. They're a pretty popular model. But we found one, and we ended up buying it. I ended up taking a bath on the other one, but that's the way it is. So that now we had two couples with two identical trailers. Well, Chuck, I'll call him the other Chuck here. The other Chuck and his wife, they had a different brand of trailer, and it was they were not real large people, and it kind of worked for them. But it was cramped for me. I mean, I could hardly even stand up in it. It was real low ceiling, and they traveled with us a little bit with this other trailer, and they really fell in love with the two trailers that we had. And so lo and behold, their trailer catches on fire. And now it didn't burn it down or anything, but it had burned up some wiring and damaged it to the point where they had to end up doing something about it. So they traded it in, and they bought another one just like ours. So now we had all three trailers, the same brand and the same model. And we traveled together. Well, now comes one of the comical parts. Is, of course, my name is Chuck. The other couple, his name is Warner, and this guy who I'm calling the other Chuck, his last name was Warner, so his name was Chuck Warner. So we had Chuck Warner and Chuck Warner. And of course, whenever we go traveling, my wife had kind of assumed the position of cruise director. And so she would be making the reservations at the RV park or wherever we were ended up going. And that was an endless source of amusement and confusion every single time. because we tell them we need 3 spaces, and when they ask for names, we tell them what the names were, and they invariably would say, well, what's the third party's name? And we got to laugh about that. They confused it I don't know how many times, and of course then add the fact that all 3 trailers were exactly the same. More than once it caused issues at RV parks, and we laughed a lot about that, and that was pretty funny. Well, we traveled with them for a while and a number of years, went to a number of different places with them, and had a good time. And so eventually, the first couple they decided to upsize to a fifth wheel, and they were going to go full time in for a while. And so Chuck and his wife decided they were going to upsize to a fifth wheel as well. So they did. Well, it turned out that both couples decided the fifth wheel was a little bit big and ungainly, and they ended up downsizing back to a pull behind. And then Chuck and his wife, they actually lived in their fifth wheel for a little while, but then they decided to move a different direction as well. And they were world travelers. They'd been all over the world, and so they kind of decided to go to a more static place and spend their money traveling in their later years. They were the other Chuck, he was a little bit older than me. And so anyway, so we kind of lost track of them a little bit, and we'd every once in a while we'd hear from them, and everything was fine, everybody was doing real well. Well, yesterday evening, my wife gets a call from Warner's wife, and he said that Chuck, the other Chuck, had passed away, and we had no idea that. My first thought was he was sick or something. Well, it turns out he wasn't. He and his wife were on a cruise, and they were in the Cayman Islands, and they took an off-ship excursion to go snorkeling. And while they were snorkeling, something happened to Chuck, and we don't know what. We haven't heard enough yet, but he went snorkeling and he didn't come up. And so they called emergency responders, and they went down there and they searched the place. And apparently, eventually the Coast Guard located his body, and they were able to recover his body. And unfortunately, Chuck died. He was a good guy. He was a little bit maybe from his university background, he's a little bit of kind of an absent-minded professor, but he was a lot of fun, and we enjoyed traveling with him. And one of the sad things about getting older, and if you're not as old as I am, you'll see it when you get there, and that is that you start seeing your friends around you. Just all of a sudden one day something will happen to one of them, they'll be gone. And as time goes on, there's fewer and fewer of you. And someday it'll be me, and someday it'll be all of us. And but it's just a sad thing. And I posted a little something on my community page this morning, and I said I'd make a video and tell you a little bit about Chuck and what had happened there, and just to it's one of those sad things that just happens. And I feel really sorry for his wife, and they were married for a long time, and now she's tasked with getting his body back to the States and taking care of all that stuff. Fortunately, they have family that'll help them, but just a horrible thing. I can just imagine all of a sudden you're in some foreign country somewhere, and something bad like that happens, and I know it happens a lot, but it's really sad when it happens to somebody that you know. So that'll be all for this one, and I'll go ahead and get this one posted up. And I'd like to thank you all for watching, and those of you that subscribed, thank you for that. And if you haven't subscribed to me, think about doing that, and comments are always welcome. So like I always tell everybody, love each other, take care of each other. It's a wonderful life. It's probably going to be too short. I can't, when people tell me that they retire and they get bored, I can't hardly even comprehend that, because I always tell people there's so many things I want to do that if I live 5 lifetimes, it won't be enough. So like I said, take care of each other, love each other. It's a wonderful life. And think some kind thoughts about poor old Chuck, and hopefully he's up with our Heavenly Father, and that everything is good, and that his wife will be able to deal with it. And we've got a message into her, but we haven't heard back from her yet, but I think she's still out on the boat somewhere. So Anyway, that'll be it for now. I'll let you go, and I'll catch you on the next one. And so for now, I'll just say peace out.